School isn't just a place for learning. Sometimes it's the backdrop for some of the creepiest, most unexplainable events. Tonight, I'll share 3 spine-chilling tales from students who experienced terrifying encounters that left them haunted. So grab your headphones, dim the lights, and get ready for 3 creepy true student horror stories. Our first story takes place in the basement of an old high school. It was the beginning of the fall semester, and as part of a school sports initiation, a group of freshmen were dared to spend 10 minutes alone in the abandoned locker room in the basement. This locker room had been closed off for years, rumored to be haunted after a tragic incident involving a student decades ago. Most kids brushed it off as just another urban legend. But when freshman Ben was dared to go down there alone, he reluctantly accepted, not wanting to seem scared in front of his classmates. Ben made his way down the narrow stairway into the basement. The air grew colder with each step, and an eerie silence filled the damp hallway. As he reached the locker room, he noticed how old and decayed everything looked. Broken lockers, shattered mirrors, and flickering lights. He turned on his flashlight and waited, hoping to pass the time quickly. But then he started to hear faint whispering. At first, he thought it was his friends playing a prank on him, but when he called out, there was no response. The whispers grew louder, almost like a chant, and he felt an icy breath on the back of his neck. Ben turned around, and for a brief second, he swore he saw a figure standing at the end of the row of lockers, a shadowy figure with hollow eyes, staring at him. Panicking, he sprinted back up the stairs, bursting into the hallway where his friends were waiting. They laughed at his terrified face, but Ben never went down to that locker room again. To this day, he's convinced that what he saw wasn't just his imagination. He believes that some things are best left undisturbed. This next story comes from a college student named Sarah, who attended a university in a small town. She had just moved into a dorm room that was notoriously known among students for strange occurrences, though she didn't believe in ghost stories at the time. During her first week, she woke up every night at exactly 3:15 a.m. to the feeling of someone sitting on the edge of her bed. It was subtle at first, a slight dip in the mattress, like someone was settling down beside her. She assumed it was just a bad dream, until one night, she felt a cold hand brush against her foot. Frightened, she turned on her bedside lamp, but there was no one there. She dismissed it as her imagination and tried to go back to sleep. But over the next few nights, the presence felt more real, more physical. Books would fall off her shelves, her closet door would creak open, and she'd occasionally hear soft humming, like a lullaby coming from the walls. One night, she gathered the courage to ask her roommate, who had lived there the previous semester, if she had ever noticed anything strange. Her roommate looked at her with wide eyes and admitted that she had moved out because of similar experiences. She revealed that a student had once died in that dorm room under mysterious circumstances years ago. Sarah was so disturbed by the revelation that she requested a room change. To this day, she still refuses to talk about what really happened in that room. But one thing is certain, she was never alone during those nights. Our final story takes place in a high school chemistry lab, where a group of students had to complete a late-night project as part of an advanced science class. It was just the 3 of them, finishing up their experiment long after everyone else had left the building. The school was silent, with only the dim lights of the lab illuminating their work. As they were cleaning up, one of the students, Jake, noticed that a beaker on the far side of the room was still bubbling, even though they had turned off all the burners. When he went to check, the liquid inside was cold. Confused, he called his friends over, but they couldn't figure out what was causing the bubbling. Then, without warning, one of the cabinets behind them swung open, slamming against the wall. They jumped back, startled, but there was no one else in the room. As they stared, the cabinet doors began to open and close on their own, and a cold breeze swept through the lab. They could hear a faint voice, whispering words they couldn't quite make out. Panicked, they grabbed their bags and ran out, slamming the lab door behind them. When they returned the next morning with their teacher, everything seemed normal. No bubbling beaker, no open cabinets. But when Jake looked inside the cabinet that had been slamming shut, he found a piece of paper with the words, "Leave now," written in shaky handwriting. To this day, none of them can explain what happened in that lab, but they're convinced it was a warning from someone or something that didn't want them there. School is supposed to be a place of learning, a place of structure and safety. But for some students, it became a place of fear and mystery. These are just a few examples of the unexplainable horrors that have crept into classrooms, dorms, and locker rooms. Remember, my dear listeners, some things can't be explained by science or reason. Until next time, keep your eyes open and be careful where you wander, even in places you think are safe. This is the Tales Keeper, signing off.